Lord be with you. Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. King Herod heard about Jesus, for his fame had become widespread, and people were saying, John the Baptist has been raised from the dead. That is why mighty powers are at work in him. Others were saying, he is Elijah. Still others, he is a prophet like any of the prophets. When Herod learned of it, he said, it is John whom I beheaded. He has been raised up. Herod was the one who had John arrested and bound in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, whom he had married. John had said to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. Herodias harbored a grudge against him and wanted to kill him, but was unable to do so. Herod feared John, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man, and kept him in custody. When he heard him speak, he was very much perplexed, yet he liked to listen to him. Herodias had an opportunity one day when Herod, on his birthday, gave a banquet for his courtiers, his military officers, and the leading men of Galilee. His own daughter came in and performed a dance that delighted Herod and his guests. The king said to the girl, ask of me whatever you wish, and I will grant it to you. He even swore many things to her. I will grant you whatever you ask of me, even to half of my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, what shall they ask for? Her mother replied, the head of John the Baptist. The girl hurried back to the king's presence, made a request. I want you to give me at once on a platter the head of John the Baptist. The king was deeply distressed, but because of his oaths and the guests, he did not wish to break his word to her. So he promptly dispatched an executioner with orders to bring back his head. He went off and beheaded him in the prison. He brought in the head on a platter and gave it to the girl. The girl, in turn, gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard about it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. The Gospel of the Lord. Today there are two optional memorial saints. One is Saint Jerome Emiliani, who worked in helping orphans in Italy. We also celebrate a saint that was canonized a few years ago, and probably most of you have never heard of her. Her name is Josephine Bakhita. Have you ever heard of her, any of you? There's a really good DVD. Really good DVD. What impressed me most is that she was born in Sudan, and basically she was just treated like an object. She was being sold from one family to the next, and most of these were Muslims. One of the scenes that impressed me most was, do any of you have a waffle iron? Have you ever seen them? Waffle iron is, if you put a waffle or the mix into the iron, you come up with a waffle. They showed one scene where her back looked like a waffle. It looked like that. Because what they'd done was they actually branded her. That's the scene I remember most. I saw this movie 5 years ago. I could never erase that from my memory. Now let's take it one more step. She's not a Christian. She's not a Catholic. Did she believe in God? Looks like she believed in some type of God. But even though these people treated her like trash, she never harbored an ounce of resentment against these people that treated her worse than an animal. Without even being a Christian. What happens to us? Someone says a little word to us, someone cuts us off in traffic, someone doesn't smile at us and we're expecting a smile, and we harbor resentment for a fortnight. How embarrassing, right? Very embarrassing. And the key is that this woman was not even a Christian yet. And if you followed her life, she ends up in Italy, and she meets up with the Canossian nuns. And she starts to talk with the Canossian nuns, and she becomes a Catholic. She receives all the sacraments. Not only that, but she actually became one of the Canossian nuns. And there were very few Africans there. She was the only one in that area that was a black woman. And the people just loved her. You know why? They loved her because they knew that she loved them. They loved her because they saw in her the love of Christ. So she really lives up many of the values of the gospel. I think many of us, even to this day, we still hold on to resentment against someone that hurt us. Maybe 20 years ago. Here's a woman that was treated like worse than an animal. Never, never, never an ounce of resentment. Blessed are the merciful. So pray to her today. Maybe go back and see the DVD. Maybe go into your internet and get John Paul II's homily for her canonization. But I think it's a saint that we should get to know better and better. These modern saints that are just on the calendar in the past few years. So let's take a word from the letter to the Hebrews. Be mindful of prisoners as if sharing their imprisonment. I'm going to tell you a short story from Fulton Sheen. Very short, and I think you're going to like it. He was preaching to 1,000 prisoners. And he said in his homily, the only difference between you and me is that you were caught and I was not caught. Okay, you didn't understand it, so I'll say it again, okay? The only difference between you and me is that you got caught and I was not caught. What was he saying? We're all sinners. We're all sinners. There are different types of imprisonment. Physical imprisonment, and there are also moral imprisonment through sin. So the only reason why none of us are in a prison today, or not in Alcatraz or any of the prison, is because of God's grace. Amen? All those prisoners that are there, we could have been one of those, and we still could be a prisoner, save the grace of God. Amen? Okay, the gospel. You've heard this hundreds of times, but let's look at John the Baptist and his example for us. Why was he in prison? King Herod had decided to do something that was a public scandal. King Herod took the wife of his brother and started to live with the wife of his brother. Pretty bad, huh? pretty ugly. And basically no one had the courage to confront King Herod except one person. That was John the Baptist. Why? Because they knew if they confronted King Herod, they would end up where? In jail, where John the Baptist was. But John the Baptist had no bones about confronting him and saying, look, what you're doing is wrong. And Herodias, the woman with whom Herod was living, hated the guts of John the Baptist. Herod actually liked John the Baptist. He feared him. When he spoke to him, he knew that there was something special about John the Baptist. But Herodias hated his guts. Hated him. So she wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. How often are we confronted with situations where we become, as they say in Spanish, una gallina, we become a chicken. We don't speak out when we should be speaking out. Maybe in our family, maybe in a social meeting, maybe with some relative or friend, where we see something is objectively wrong, very clearly wrong, but we pull back because of cowardice. Pray to John the Baptist. Pray to John the Baptist. Another point in this gospel is he died to defend the indissoluble character of the sacrament of marriage. Because he was preaching against and dying for the purpose of defending the sacrament of marriage. Because Herod was living in adultery. Worse yet, incestuous adultery. You know what that is? And that makes it even worse. Like we have to take John the Baptist as our modern patron saint. We really do. Last point I'd like to make is this. Death. All of us, one day, we're going to die. We don't know the day nor the hour. It's a mystery. In about 40 minutes, I will be in All Souls Cemetery, burying a little baby, okay? A miscarriage. Very difficult. Very difficult. Then 45 minutes after that, I come back to St. Peter Schnell, and I'm doing another funeral of one of the men who was in my men's group who died suddenly. He died, he was about 12 years younger than me. We don't know when God's going to call us, do we? We don't know the day nor the hour. But John the Baptist teaches us the importance of loving Christ, focusing on Christ, giving our lives to Christ, living well and dying well, so that he could be with the Lord forever in heaven. So let's not put off our conversion. Let's don't say mañana. Don't say mañana. Say right now. This is the day of salvation. Let's ask John the Baptist, St. Jerome, St. Josefa Paquita to help us to be people that live always with Jesus before our eyes. Live our lives for Christ. Die giving ourselves to Christ so that we can live with Christ for all eternity. Amen.